Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, it was a dawn of a new era as the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration came to an end, ushering in the beginning of another government, which will be led by a former governor and a former senator, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, the new president took oath of office and hit the ground running with his inaugural speech where he proclaimed subsidy is gone. Trust me, that line is one that Nigerians will remember for a very long time. But this, among others, is what the new president, who has spent a week in office, says will be his focus as he steers the will of the country for the next 4 years. That will be our focus on the show today. But before we begin, let's take a look at what got Nigerians talking last week, even though I know you are guessing what else that could be. Perhaps your guess could be as good as mine, but let's take a look.
The presidential proclamation by Bola Tinubu during his inaugural speech that fuel subsidy is gone got Nigerians in a panic mode as they thronged filling stations in their numbers to fill up their car tanks and storage ahead of the implementation of the removal. Just as the queues were reaching unbearable heights, the removal was implemented and premium motor spirit price skyrocketed from 197 naira to 540 naira. Nigerians have since been lamenting the sudden increase, leading the Nigeria Labour Congress to threaten a strike action to commence on Wednesday, June the 8th, if the federal government doesn't revert to the old price.
Well, there you go. That was the perhaps most talked about topic online as well as offline in the past week. But joining us to look at the topic of the day, we have with us right here in the Lagos studio, Ahmed Mustafa. He is a political analyst and social commentator. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, in the Abuja studio, for some reason, I'm yet to come to terms with the fact that I've moved to Abuja. But Ahmed, again, thanks for joining us in the Abuja studio. And also we have Seun Awogbinle. He's a public policy analyst and he's a communications expert, advocate for good governance and youth inclusion in politics. He joins us via Zoom from Lagos. Seun, it's a pleasure to have you on the show as well.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Perhaps I got confused by Seun's appearance and I thought I was in Lagos. But either ways, again, thanks for joining us on the show. So kickstart the conversation for us, Seun from Lagos. How inspiring and how would I say now, what's the right adjective to use? How convincing was the president's speech, during his inauguration for you?
Okay, so for me, the president's speech was actually statesmanly, and I think it was equally pacific. I like the fact that he acknowledged that the election was quite feisty and was fierce. He equally acknowledged that his opponents did put up a good fight. But more so for me was the fact that he actually invited everyone, even those that did not support him, to the project Nigeria. So he said his political coalition ended that day, and that he would no longer see anybody as either APC, PDP, or Labour Party, and that for one, we are all Nigerians. And I think that was quite statesmanly. I especially acknowledge him for and really commend him for that. I also think he touched on some of the vital topics and some of the vital challenges that we currently experience in the country. I think that he really said the right things, especially on the economy, which was on the front burner. He said the right things, also ensuring the commitment we wanted to fight insecurity. And I also think that he also mentioned something around the lines of anti-corruption. On the economy, which was on the front burner, I like that he especially mentioned his commitment to unify the exchange rate. I like that he equally mentioned the fact that it was finally time to put subsidy behind us. And you see, the truth is that the subsidy conversation was always expected. We all knew we were going to come to this point where subsidy would have to be revisited. It has always been a contentious and very emotive issue over the years. So most times it turns into political capital for a lot of people. But I think that I quite acknowledge him for finding the courage to be able to do this. Although perhaps the implementation, I'd say has been quite shoddy. especially because I expect that it will be seen as a national crisis for what it is. It is actually a national crisis. And I expect that our government has, one, would communicate consistently. You need to make people see that this is a national sacrifice. So if we're making a national sacrifice, people in government equally have to show personal example. So, I mean, if we're talking about cutting down on, personal costs, personal lifestyle, then those in government should also cut down on their own lifestyle. 15 convoy vehicles would no longer make sense at this point. So, I think that people in government have to show a personal example, and then they have to communicate more effectively. And, I work in communications, and I know that, a time like this is one you actually need to communicate consistently. I give you an example. During COVID, Governor Sanwo-Olu actually deployed effective communication during that period. And I think that was one of the things that helped us get over, completely get over the entire pandemic at the time. So I think government needs to communicate. As a matter of fact, I expect that government will give an update every day, where we have and what government is looking to do, especially on the intervention that they have to make on transportation and the cost of food items. The cost of food items are obviously going up. This food inflation, as you'd expect.
Absolutely.
But these are necessary sacrifices that we all have to make for future development.
All right, very well. I mean, he pretty much, gave us like a very rounded, summary of how he felt, listening to the president, making his inaugural speech, talking about implementation. One of the things that caught me, which we usually say that, we know how to write all those beautiful documents. Like he said, according to him, the president's inaugural speech was statesmanly and impressive, quote unquote. But how do we go about implementation? What's your belief in terms of the president implementing all of the things he said?
Well, Victor, it's interesting that you raised implementation, because I feel that has been Nigeria's biggest challenge. Like you said, it's not in the documentation of what we plan to do. It's in actually doing it when it comes to the physical. Ashwaju has made mention of this during his campaign. He said he's the person who knows how to do the talk. So it's not just empty talk. And his antecedents proves that beyond reasonable doubt. When he was governor of Lagos, you can draw references from the things that he said and he did in Lagos. A key point to that is even at the beginning of his presidency, while he was campaigning, he did say that no matter how Nigerians felt about it, subsidy had to go. And that was the first thing he said on that inauguration: subsidy is gone. That's a man
not minding the immediate impacts Nigerians are feeling.
This has to happen. We've been moving around that mountain for years now. The Jonathan administration tried to do it in 2012, and Nigerians kicked against it. Including him. Yes. But now there's a realization that we cannot continue around this mountain if this country needs to move forward. Every Nigerian realizes this. And like Sean said, effective communication is key. And I must give kudos to the machinery of government and communications. I have observed social media and traditional media to see just how effective this communication has gotten. And for the first time in a very long time in our recent democratic history, I want to give kudos to government in its openness in communicating with Nigerians what steps are being taken day by day to ensure that Nigerians end up being the biggest beneficiary of this subsidy removal. As it stands right now, it appears as though Nigerians are going to be the ones to bear the brunt. And like Sheon said, it's a national sacrifice that we all have to make. But at the end, people have to be conscious of why they are making those sacrifices and be able to hold government accountable to those sacrifices and those promises made. And this government has started with an open book policy to show Nigerians this is what we're doing and this is the end product of this entire process. And I think the Nigerian people, for the first time, are going along with government in this. Ordinarily, if government had taken this step, the natural expectation of Nigerians would have been for the country to shut down economically. That hasn't happened. Government is actively negotiating with labor unions to ensure that critical steps are taken and measures are put in place to cushion the effect of this on Nigerians.
Yeah. So let's also again look at implementation, and also add, an appendage to that, which is sacrifice. Sheon talked about the convoy, the number of cars in convoys, and all of that. How possible is that? I remember the former president talking about reducing the presidential fleet. That never happened.
Okay, but if you look at it, the Buhari government is Buhari is one man, Ashwaju is another. Yes, they come from the same party, but different individuals completely. Ashwaju is one man who has said what he will do, and he has begun in that that stride. So I would ask the Nigerians, follow this government, like they say on the street, bumper to bumper, and see just how well. It would be irresponsible of government to ask Nigerians to bear this brunt without them making substantial cuts. You know, I hope that in the coming days, to carry the Nigerian people along and avert a national disaster, government begins to take steps. Those in government at executive and legislative levels begin to take steps to cut down on their own lifestyle, to show Nigerians that we are all involved in this as a people. And what that does is that it reduces the gap between those who are governing and those who are being governed. And if that comes out and there's sincerity of purpose, particularly from leadership, then followership just naturally comes along with that.
Very well. Let me bring Seun back into the conversation. Seun, still speaking about sacrifice, because ultimately that's what is all going to boil down to. For now, we are yet to see that sacrifice. Those who are sacrificing currently are the Nigerian masses, so to speak, because they're the ones bearing the brunt, buying the fuel at 540 naira, in some places even more. How long? I mean, this government is just exactly 1 week. How long do you think Nigerians can wait, to see that their leaders are also sacrificing? They're not seeing flamboyant cars, in convoys. They're not seeing too many cars in convoys, and all of those perks that come with office. How long do you think Nigerians can wait?
So, I don't think Nigerians can wait any longer. As a matter of fact, I think that those personal examples have to start now. So, like I said earlier, if you're asking Nigerians to make sacrifices in their own right, then I think that the leaders must equally, as a matter of urgency, begin to show personal sacrifice. So I don't think Nigerians can wait any longer. But I think the question will even be about, okay, where do we go from here? And I think it is that picture of where we are going from here that I think that government must urgently paint. Because you are essentially asking people to buy into a national vision. So they are asking them to buy into that national vision. You must be able to create and paint that picture in their hearts and in their minds. So at the moment, I don't think that government is doing that. And that's why I said that I have noticed at least two gaps in the implementation of the subsidy. One is the lack of personal example, especially from those in government, and the lack and obvious gap in communication. There's serious gap in communication, and I think that's also a major challenge. This is the time for what you describe as inspirational leadership. This is the time to rally the people around a national consensus and a national vision. So the national vision is that we all agree and we all accept that for once the subsidy has to go. In 2022, we spent more than 4 trillion on subsidy. This year alone, we're expected to spend about 560 billion on a monthly basis, when the budget for education is barely up to 2 trillion. So if you're spending 4 trillion in 2022 on consumption, when critical sectors of the economy like education, like health, like infrastructure continue to suffer, as a matter of fact, Nigeria has over $2 trillion infrastructural gap that is hoping to close over the next 25 years. So they are hoping to close that, then you actually need to spend at least $100 billion annually on infrastructure. So you need to free up some of these inefficient subsidies, especially that of fuel. But when you do that, then you must then let Nigerians know where exactly you'll be channeling the funds into. As a matter of fact, we must also note that in the immediate, I don't think government will even have any money, because like NNPC has told us, government is actually owing about 2.8 trillion for this year on subsidy alone. But I think that in the medium term, government is going to free up some of these funds that will no longer go into the subsidy. So if you are freeing up and you are able to save about between 4 and 6 trillion annually, then it gives you a fiscal headroom to be able to channel the funds into more productive sectors. And that's actually what I think. And I also expect that government will begin to talk, and I think that conversation has started, about implementing a new minimum wage, because the implication is that cost of living is going to go up, and cost of living has actually gone up for everybody, including yourself. Cost of living has gone up, and we all can feel the reality. So if the cost of living has gone up, but minimum wage or what you call living wage has remained the same, then that would be unacceptable. So I think that government also needs to do something about the minimum wage. As a matter of fact, I also see some states, are beginning to actually practice, something around. Some states are beginning to practice something around remote working and all that. Just before I came on, I saw the states that asked workers to begin to work 3 days in a week. I also think that is that would be quite critical. A place like Lagos is also where I expect that you might be able to actually implement something like that. Something like remote working and when you don't have everybody going to work every day, and then some people. So at least in the immediate, you need what you call respite, right? So government needs to sit down. That's the national and subnational government must sit down to actually offer what you describe as immediate respite. So that immediate respite can come in terms of either work from home or what's it called? Yeah. Also, implementing a new minimum wage is something that I don't think that's something we can achieve immediately. So that's something that might come in 3-6 months. So that's also in the medium term. But in the short term, you also need some intervention, on food items, right? Because the cost of transporting food from the north to the south is going to go up. So when it goes up, the people who are going to be buying from here, who are going to be buying from perhaps the south.
I think the markets are already responding.
Obviously responding.
They're already responding to that increase in the price of petrol. But let me just hold you there for a bit, Seun, as well as Ahmed, right here in the studio. We'll take a quick break, and of course, when we come back, we'll take a look at the relationship that will exist between the presidency and the legislature. Of course, that is a key component if this administration is going to succeed in implementing all of the things that it has promised. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We still have with us right here in the Abuja studio Ahmed Mustafa, as well as Seun Awugbenle, joining us via Zoom from Lagos. But let's switch lanes, Ahmed. Looking at the endorsement, of whom to occupy. What's it called now, the speakership as well as the Senate presidentship, in the 10th Assembly. Some members of the party, there are rumblings here and there, but ultimately whoever becomes, would have to have a good working relationship with the president to ensure that, things move on smoothly. But what's your take on that perspective?
Well, a number of issues. Like you said, there are internal rumblings within the party, and that's fairly natural in a democracy. It's not it's not a military dictatorship where people just get imposed. So a lot of people have ambitions to be Senate president or to be speaker, and these people are eminently qualified. They're Nigerians, and they meet the constitutional requirement for these offices. So, but the party has decided in what direction it wants to go. And I'm sure that one of the key indicators for the party is how best to help the presidency at the executive achieve its goals and promises to Nigerians. And so, in their wisdom, they've pitched their tent with Senator Godswill Akpabio for the position of Senate presidency and Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas for the speakership. And critically, I look at the Akpabio choice as one that I think is a masterstroke. And why do I say that? Simply because there's a need to balance things out, for equity, fairness, justice. We have a Muslim ticket at the president's and the vice president's level. It will be unthinkable to not have a Christian Senate president. But beyond the religion is the fact that Godswill Akpabio is perhaps one of the most qualified persons to occupy that. That's it. His background as a lawyer gives him an added advantage. And the fact that while he was governor of Akwa Ibom, it's, even his greatest detractors must give him credit for a job well done. And that experience as someone who is coming from having been in the executive, there's a need for a handshake, proper handshake with the executive while he's leading the legislature. And again, Nigeria at this critical point needs bipartisan relationships. And I dare say there is nobody better at, rallying the troops from both sides of the divide, be it APC, PDP, Labour Party, whatever, than Senator Godswill Akpabio. And I think that, again, that's a key point and a brilliant choice. We need to move away from all of the clownish and dramatic scenes that we see in the Senate to actual serious business of lawmaking, and I think that's key. And I'm sure that the party is looking at that in picking somebody who's acceptable, not just to the APC senators, but also to senators across the divide. Because at the end of the day, he's not going to be Senate president for the APC. He's going to be setting the precedent for the entirety of the country. And it's important to have somebody who has a calm enough demeanor to carry everybody along in this business of nation building.
Well, we have to wait and see if during the elections what transpired in 2015 won't happen again. Let me take that to Seun. Seun, we saw what happened in 2015 and how, you know, the party's choice didn't go down well with some members of the assembly, and of course what happened. Do you see that happening again in this dispensation, in the 10th assembly?
So my natural instinct would be to say it is unlikely, especially in the Senate. I doubt that will happen. But I think that even if it would happen, what you're likely to have that surprise would be in the House of Reps. So there are quite a number of tendencies in the House of Reps, and as you can see, most of the APC speakership aspirants they have not stepped down. Some of them have actually vowed to go ahead. As a matter of fact, I do think that perhaps the ruling party would have to actually revisit the sharing, especially in terms of the principal position. I do not think that the Northwest, when perhaps the North Central doesn't even have anything, I don't think that the Northwest should have the deputy speaker, the deputy Senate president, and then also equally have the speaker. So I do think that if anything, if APC actually risk, APC potentially risk losing the speakership if it doesn't, especially revisit that. I think they might have to revisit that. So either they are going to have the Northwest get the speaker and then have the North Central get the deputy Senate president, but either has to happen. But I think that APC is on top of it. Obviously, you see that's also one of the things that you get when you have a president who is equally a politician, right? Who is a very charismatic politician, and that is most likely going to be on top of everything. I understand he's going to meet with opposition legislators today. So I think that you have a president that is most likely going to be on top of most of the political situation. So I don't think that would happen. I in fact think that even people from opposition are conceding to the APC what you could describe as the opportunity to then field their own candidates. But I think it's something that may have to be managed very well. It's something that APC has to manage, especially in the House of Reps. It's something that they will have to manage quite critically. And to actually determine how the party moves on from here and to be able to deliver its promises of progressive good governance. So if it will be able to, how it does manage its own internal affairs is also going to determine how to govern Nigeria in the long term. So I don't think, my response would be that I do not think that you're likely to have an upset, but in the event that you have an upset, then when you might likely have that happen in the House of Reps.
Quickly, as we wind down, just in case it happens, how would that have? What impact would it have on the working relationship between the executive and the legislature? Especially, we're looking at trying to put in checks and balances and all of that.
Well, I do think that what you have in this situation would be that if you have a situation where there is a different political party heading the legislative arm, I mean, it has happened before. There's worked before, but I think it might be better to actually have the same political party. So you're likely to have a situation where relationship will be frosty, and then you're likely to have a situation that is not entirely smooth. So I think it's actually in the best interest of even the country to have the ruling party keep their own candidate and get their own candidate. But they cannot do it as though they are essentially asking people to do it as though it's a take it or leave it. They will actually have to manage the internal politics very well.
Well, let's hope that happens. But also, Ahmed, just before we go, the impact of the working relationship between these two very key arms of government if things go south?
Well, I don't see it going south, I have to say, because in 2015, the APC was just very fresh, a political party that was just learning the ropes. And those lessons have been learned in 2015, was why we didn't have the same situation in 2019. And then again, we had a president who was making his entry into the political scene. It's not the same this time around with Bola Tinubu. I see a president who is going to be hands-on from day one, so I can almost go to town and say this is a done. But in the event that there is an upset, I think Ashwaji is a man who knows how to find his way around situations and circumstances that do not would not ordinarily bode well for him. He would find a way to ensure that whoever picks whatever position is somebody who he can bring on board and work with effectively to the betterment of the country and 200 million Nigerians. Well,
I pretty much hope that that's what's going to happen. But at this point, I think this is a good point to drop the conversation. So I would say thank you to Ahmed Mustafa for joining us on the show from our Abuja studio, as well as Shehu Nawagwinle. Thanks as well also for joining us via Zoom from Lagos. It's a pleasure having both of you share with us your thoughts on the on the ongoing administration, actually no longer coming. So let's wait and see how things go. Thanks again. Well, that's where we are. Nigerians will continue to watch and see how things will play out as this administration takes off. Hopefully at the tail end of everything, Nigerians will be happy that the right choice was made and they will feel the impact of all of the policies that this administration says it will put in place for the betterment of their lives. But that's where we wrap it up on the show today. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. We'll leave you with the most videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. Bye for now.
How they will all feel included in your victory.
This week's Top 5 videos kicks off with the advice given to President Bola Tinubu by former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta.
And see your government as their government, your agenda as their agenda, one Nigeria, one government for all.
It is followed by the departure of former President Muhammadu Buhari from Abuja to Katsina as his tenure comes to an end.
Subsidy.
Third spot sees the proclamation by President Tinubu that fuel subsidy is gone.
The budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've heard is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. The first subsidy is gone. The parade commander.
Still at the Eagle Square and taking the second spot is a video of an intruder pushed off the podium during President Tinubu's inaugural speech.
On the rest of the parade, please. Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
While in first place and still from the Eagle Square is the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Vision, focus and a strong sense of purpose that have characterized Bola Tinubu's politics.